Hi, I'm Rachel K Collier, and today I'm going to show you how I create a live looping performance using Ableton Live. So first things first, let's have a loop at the project. So in my live looping performances, I like to loop up lots of audio. So what you can see here in my project is many audio channels which are named and also pre-record enabled, so I'm ready for my live looping. I've also got one MIDI channel, and that's going to be for my kick drum to keep me nice and in time. And now let's go and have a little look at the ins and outs. We've got two inputs in this performance, and these are channels 1 and 2, and these are going into my audio interface. And channel 1 is going to be my vocal microphone, which is an SM58, which is going to be doing some percussion loops and some vocal loops. And channel 2 is my Yamaha Reface DX, where I'm going to do some bass and some synth loops. And what's super important here is you can see that the monitoring is all set to off for the loops on these audio channels. Now, if we look at these two white channels here, the input is channels 1 and 2, but the monitoring is set to in here, and these channels are just going to allow me to hear everything I'm singing or playing through my interface. And then let's look here at the outputs. So we've got our main outs coming through 1 and 2, but we also don't want the audience to hear the click track. So super important that the cue out is sent to a separate output on your sound card. And in my case, that's going to be channels 7 and 8. Now let's take a quick look at my preferences here. I've got my audio input and output device set to my Fireface UC. And this output configuration is super important to make sure all the stereo outs that you're going to use are enabled. So I've got 1 to 8 enabled. Cool. Now let's have a little look at the record, warp and launch. So firstly, the exclusivity here for your ARM or record enable in Live's default is set to on, but I'm going to turn that off. And then my default launch mode is going to be set to toggle. Live's default will be trigger. And then finally, I'm going to turn off the start recording on scene launch. So now we've had a quick look at my live template. Let's have a little look at my gear that I need for this type of performance. So I've got my push 2 here, which is for recording and re-triggering my loops. Second is my Akai LPT8, which I use to control all my effects and play my kick drum. Next is my Yamaha Reface DX, which I use to create my chords, leads and bass sounds. Here I've got my super high-tech shakers and golf ball and cinnamon stick, and these are going to create the percussion parts in my performance. I'm going to record this through my SM58 here, which runs direct into my RME audio interface, which has multi-ins and outs. So now I've shown you my template and my gear here. Let's get into it and make some music. So I'm going to start with my rhythm section because it gets me going. I'm going to play a hi-hat with my golf ball and cinnamon stick. I'm going to play shakers and I'm going to do my kick drum. I'm going to turn my metronome on so I can hear the click in my headphones. I'm also going to set a fixed length 2-bar loop on push. And I'm going to turn on here, super cool function, record quantization on a 16th note for my kick drum. So let's do it. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. One, two, three, four. Cool. And you could probably hear that there was a little effect on my golf ball there. Let me solo that for you. It's actually a vocoder. So it's a very sophisticated plugin, but I'm using it in the most simple way just to give me a nice bit of spread and thickness on that sound. If you hear it without it, you can see it makes a big difference. Cool. So now I'm going to add some chords to my rhythm section. And whereas I've been recording all my parts in scene 2, I'm now going to record the chords part in scene 1. And that is because when later on I re-trigger this scene, I don't want the chords to start straight away. Let's do it. Now you probably noticed that when those chords play back, there was this cool rhythmic effect. Well, that's created using sidechain compression. And I've set that up by simply adding a compressor to my chords channel and setting the audio from the RKC kick drum that I created earlier. And that means that every time that kick drum plays, it's going to trigger the compressor and create that cool ducking rhythmic effect. So now I've added some chords and I've given myself a pitch reference, I can start to loop up some vocals. I'm going to start with this super simple one-note loop. Now on this channel, I've preloaded in an auto filter. And by playing with the frequency parameter, we can start to add some color and interest to the loop. Check this out. Now to do this live, I'm going to MIDI map this parameter to a knob on my Akai LPT8. To do this, I'm just going to click the MIDI button here. I'm going to choose the parameter I want to map, which is the frequency. Click that, then choose any knob on here to map it to. Twist the knob, you'll see a number pop up. And check this out. So now I'm going to record the final parts for this scene, which I'm going to re-trigger, and it's going to be the chorus for my song. So I've got 3 channels here, and I'm going to record a vocal chant. I've grouped these 3 channels because I want all these parts to have the same effects. And I've also panned 2 of the channels to the left and to the right. So let's put it down. Hey, yeah, 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 hey, hey, yeah, 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 hey, yeah, 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 hey, hey, yeah, 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 hey, yeah, 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 hey, yeah, 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 hey, yeah, 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 hey, one more, hey, yeah, 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 hey, yeah, 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 hey, yeah, 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 hey, yeah, 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 hey. Now I recorded it 3 times because I wanted to have this really cool, thick, nice effect. And if we look at the effect here, I've got an additional delay, and also I've got another knob here mapped to another parameter on the Akai LPT8. So now I've made all my parts for my chorus scene, I'm going to move on to my verse. So I'm going to do that by triggering scene 3 here and starting a new chord loop of a slightly different chord sequence straight away. So I'm going to transition from here. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. And you might notice that all the clips have stopped apart from one, that cool little vocal hum. And that's because I've removed the stop button for that clip slot. Super easy to do. All you need to do is go to the clip slot where you don't want it to stop, right click, and in this case it says add stop button because I've already removed it, but right click, remove stop button. And that means it will continue. And that really depends on your arrangement and what you want to continue and what you want to stop. So now I'm ready to sing my melody and lyrics that I've already written over the loops that I've just created. But when I perform live, I like to perform using some cool live effects. So let me show you how I've set this up. So first thing I'm going to do to show you guys this is open my sends and returns here in Live. And here we can see my 3 different effects. So firstly, I've got a reverb for my vocal, which is mapped to a knob on my Akai LPD8. La la la. I've got a delay here, which is mapped to the second knob. Da 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 da. And then thirdly, I've got a super cool reverb and delay here from my Yamaha Reface DX. So let's play a little bit of that for you. And it's important to note when you're using return effects that these are set to 100% wet. So before I jump in and give you guys a full performance, I need to tell you about one more super important thing, and that is how to set up your audio routing for your performance. So when I'm on stage performing, I like to have a separate mix in my headphones than what I want the audience to hear out front. For example, I want to have that metronome playing, and also I'd quite like to have my vocals way louder than what the audience might hear. To enable myself to do this, it's super important that I have an audio interface with multiple outputs. So step by step, let me talk you through how you set this up. First of all, I'm going to open my ins and outs down here. I'm going to make sure that I've got 4 return tracks because I'm going to send out 4 separate stereo mixes. Then on my tracks here, I'm going to set the audio for every single track to sends only. Now that means it will not go to the master. So if I press play now, there should be nothing coming out of my master channel. And that means that you've routed these correctly. Then for each part, so for example, my golf ball, I'm going to send that out of my synths and percussion bus. So I'm going to send that to D, and then moving slowly on to the vocals, they're going to come out of F, which is my vocal loops, and so on. And now if we go to the buses themselves, we need to make sure that they are going out of their own outputs. So synth and percussion will go out of 1 and 2. Vocals and effects will go out of 3 and 4. Vocal loops 5 and 6. And my own headphone mix is going to come out of channels 7 and 8. And then that way you can send as little or as much as you like of each sound to each mix. So there we go. That is exactly how I set up a live looping performance to go on stage. And in a sec, I'm going to jump in and play the whole song for you. It's a song called And I Breathe, and it's from my debut album, RKC. This is a cool stripped back version. I really hope you guys are going to like it. And just a few other tips before you jump in and do your own live looping. Just remember to really take time, don't rush, and make sure you do loads and loads and loads of practice before you get out and go on stage. Because it can be kind of scary at first, but then it becomes second nature. So let's do this. See you next time. I'm going to play a song.
or death scenario. Don't need no loading gun, I'm dripping my sweat.